All right, great. Welcome. My name is Ryan Holger. I'm with Temperature Equipment Corporation. This is our normal Monday afternoon webinar session. We do webinars every single Monday here for the balance of the year, with the exception of holidays, obviously. I'll show you real quick here at a glance. These are the webinars we have slated, and you can see in the fall there's some flex dates, so we can kind of customize things as the industry changes. But this week is the third week of webinars for 2012, and today's topic is utility rebates for high efficiency systems. And then next week will be carrier iView graphical web interfaces for building automation systems for commercial buildings. And then following that will be high efficiency screw chillers on March 12th. All right, so with that, Illinois utilities, this says residential incentive programs. We'll also be doing the commercial incentives as the second half of this. So approximately the first half hour or so will be residential. The second half hour will be commercial. We'll cover the utility programs that are primarily in the Chicagoland area, which will be ComEd, Nicor, North Shore, and Peoples. But we'll also talk a little bit about NIPSCO, Michigan Gas Utilities, Wisconsin, and Ameren as appropriate. This is probably a slide you guys have seen 1,000 times from many different places. It just gives you a quick idea of how much energy we do consume in the building environment, both commercial buildings and residential homes. About 40% of our total energy consumption goes to operate buildings. So that's total energy. That's everything, vehicles, airplanes, industrial processes, and buildings all added together. So we are a portion of that, and we are 40%, which is the largest single segment. Of that 40%, as you can see, a good chunk of that is on the HVAC side of the equation. About 40% of that is for heating, 7 to 10% is for cooling, another 7 to 10% is typically ventilation, as well as domestic water heating. So there is quite a bit of stuff we can affect. Residentially, this is what a snapshot of a typical home looks like, and this is from the U.S. Department of Energy, and this is based on nationwide average data. So here in the Midwest, it's a little bit more on the heating side even than this might even indicate. But basically 40 to 50% of the energy you use in your home goes towards heating the home. 15 to 20% goes towards water heating. About 10 to 15% goes towards cooling. And then everything else kind of is all your miscellaneous loads, including lighting, which used to be a pretty big wedge, but has since been decreasing because homeowners have done a good job of putting the CFL bulbs and stuff like that in. So what we're going to talk about today is incentives from utility companies that help people do more than just the light bulb changeouts. What can they do to improve the efficiency of their building or of their heating and cooling systems? You may or may not have seen this data before. This is the people that have claimed tax credits in 2009, which is the last time the IRS had released such data. I don't have data for 2010 or 11 yet, but you can see up here on the top left-hand side, and hopefully you guys can see my mouse on the slide here. Oops. Illinois is in the dark red, which means more than 250,000 people claimed tax credits in 2009 related to residential energy savings. The top right is by percentage of taxpayers, with Illinois being 6 to 7%. The bottom left is the age of the homes on average, with the median average of homes in Illinois being older than 1965. And then down on the right-hand side is the amount of money claimed, with Illinois getting over $250 million in federal tax credits claimed. So basically in Illinois, we had tons of people claiming tons of tax credits for lots of money in very old homes. That's kind of the snapshot of 2009. 2010, I believe, was similar, although I don't have any data on that. But as you guys probably know, those tax credits have dried up. There's very little tax credits left available related to heating and cooling systems. We'll talk about the ones that are left in a couple minutes, but the HVAC ones are gone. Those tax credits, along with other incentive programs, have helped shift the behavior of buyers in the Illinois market as well as the whole U.S. This is a trend of people buying 90% condensing furnaces in the United States, and as you can see, it was typically between 20 and 30% of the homes would buy those high-efficiency furnaces until we got to the mid-2000s, in which case you could see the graph spikes up, and in 08, 09, and then even 2010, which is not on this graph, is a huge spike, and a lot of that was driven by the rebate monies or tax credits, if you will. The only federal tax credits left residentially are for what I would call renewable systems, which are the ones listed on the screen here. That includes geothermal heat pumps, where we couple the heat pumps to a ground heat exchanger. It includes solar systems, both photovoltaic as well as thermal water heating, wind turbines, and fuel cells. There are no tax credits left for general systems like furnaces, regular heat pumps, air conditioners, anything like that, which is why we're going to talk about the utility programs to help supplement some of those efforts. In regards to these federal tax credits for renewable systems, they are good until 2016, so there is still 4 more years left on those. It's a 30% tax credit with no cap. So unlike the old credits you had for furnaces and so forth with a $1,500 cap, these ones have no cap. So if somebody puts a $100,000 geo system in their house, they get a $30,000 credit. The other big difference is that these are available for your main home as well as your vacation homes. Previous tax credit options did not include vacation homes. These ones for the geo and solar systems do include vacation homes. That's a little snapshot on that. And these are tax credits versus a tax deduction. A tax credit comes right off your tax bill. A deduction comes off your income, so it's not quite as valuable as a tax credit. This is what's been going on with codes in the state and as well as the entire country. So this is a trend of efficiency of the International Energy Conservation Code. Up until 2009, we did not have a statewide energy code for residential homes. 2009 was the first time we adopted that, and we also updated the commercial code at that point in time. At the same time in 2009, when we adopted our first code, we also adopted a law that put our code on an automatic update schedule, if you will. So every time the new International Energy Conservation Code is published and proven to save more efficiency over the old one by the Department of Energy, then the state automatically adopts it. So what that means is that starting in June of this year, the state of Illinois code will become the 2012 IECC, International Energy Conservation Code. So June is not that far away. It's 3 or 4 months away. We'll have a new code both residentially and commercially. And as you can see, that code is approximately, on the residential side, 15% more efficient than our current code. And our current code was 15% more efficient than the previous most compatible code to that. So we have had some pretty good increases in efficiency in terms of bare minimum code compliance, and those efficiencies are going to continue to increase every 3 years, with the goal being that by the time we get to the year 2030, that as a country we're using net zero energy, which means we take as much power off the grid as we put onto it on an individual building basis. I don't know if we're going to get to that goal, but in the meantime, all the codes are going to keep ratcheting up and getting more and more strict in terms of energy savings. So big changes coming in June. The state is hosting a bunch of training sessions in that regard. They're typically 8-hour training sessions, and they're scattered throughout the entire state. If anybody needs more info on that, just send me an email, and I will try to get you the links on where you can sign up for those classes so you can learn more about the code that's coming up. I haven't read through all the new code residentially, but I do know offhand that the big thing that everybody's talking about is that blower door testing will become something that's code mandated, which should be a big change in behavior for what we do now. If you guys have questions, go ahead and type them in that question chat box, and I'll try to address them as we come up to them. Hopefully most of you guys have seen this map by now. This map is the new Department of Energy regional furnace standards. So what this basically is the new law that regulates how efficient of furnaces as well as air conditioners that you can put in certain climate zones. Here in the Midwest, we are in the blue portion of the map, which is the north half of the country, which means we have more than 5,000 heating degree days per year. So what that means is that starting in May 2013, the minimum efficiency furnace that we can have in our marketplace is a 90% furnace, which is a condensing furnace. You can see other parts of the country for different climate zones, they stay at 80%. So in the south and southwest, they stay at 80, but in the north we go to 90. Those folks in the south and southwest have to do a higher efficiency air conditioning system, whereas we are going to continue to keep the 13 SEER minimum we have now for air conditioning, because this is a heating dominated climate. Air conditioners and heat pumps, they don't change until January of 2015, so we still have 3 more years almost on those. But as far as furnaces go, we have a little more than a year, and the law changes for that. If you want more information on that, you can see that very, very long link on top. will take you directly to the 500 and some page document that's posted on the Federal Registry that kind of explains all the research that went into this, as well as what the new rules are. You're also welcome to send me an email or call me, and I'll try to help you through it as well. So just keep in mind, May 1st, 2013, minimum furnace efficiency is 90%. Boilers, their minimum efficiency is also changing. That's happening much sooner. That's happening of September this year, 2012. However, it's not going up very much. The minimum efficiency boiler you can put in today for a hot water system is 80%. The new minimum will be 82%. So unlike furnaces, they're not going to mandate a condensing appliance, which means you don't have to change the venting. So meeting this new boiler standard in a home will be fairly easy to do. Meeting the new furnace standard will be a lot of work because of the venting difference. And mainly to get this higher efficiency boiler, we're getting rid of inefficient things like having a standing pilot that's burning heat year-round for no reason. We're going to spark ignition and damper controls and things like that. Up on top of this page also is the link to where you can read more about that. And I apologize for those links being so long. That's the way our government works. But if you need me to send you the link because you don't want to write it all down, that's cool. I can do that. And then lastly, before we get into the free monies that are available, just want to let you all know that the minimum efficiency for water heaters is also changing for both gas-fired water heaters and electric water heaters. That's changing in 3 years, April 16th, 2015, which is still a long way away, but it's something just to think about. And basically for water heaters that are above 55 gallons, the requirements are fairly strict. For a gas water heater, you'll basically be forced into a condensing water heater. And for an electric water heater, you'll basically be forced into a heat pump water heater. For smaller systems below 55 gallons, the efficiencies are also going up for the gas water heaters, but it's not that difficult to achieve compared to what you're doing now, and does not require any different venting for those smaller ones. All right, so the utility rebate programs, which is probably more the reason why many of you guys had logged in today. So most of the utilities in the state of Illinois, as well as all the surrounding states, have a utility rebate program available to help distribute funds to homeowners and commercial building owners for making energy efficiency improvements to their buildings. And the way it basically works is that everybody's paying into the system. So you can see here's an example of a typical NICOR homeowner's gas bill. And in this case, she's paying in basically 1 cent for every therm that she's buying. You can see that for her July bill, she paid in 13 cents to the program, which is not very much, but then again, it's a July gas bill. If you look at a winter bill, it'll obviously be a lot more money than that. And if you look at somebody's commercial bill, it'll be hundreds, some cases even thousands of dollars a month they're paying into this program, depending on how many buildings they have and all that kind of stuff. So all the ratepayers are paying in. This is true for NICOR, Peoples, North Shore, ComEd, and Ameren, as well as some of the surrounding states and their utilities. So everybody's paying into the system, and the way you get your money back out of the system is by making an improvement to your building and applying for a rebate. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so common types of incentives that are available from the utility companies. The ones that we're going to talk about quite a bit today are going to be upgrading various pieces of equipment in your building and having a contractor do that work. So those come in a couple different flavors. There is both a residential and commercial prescriptive program for most of these utilities. Prescriptive means they give you a list of things that you can improve and a predefined dollar amount of what you can get. So it might say change your furnace out to a 90% or 92% furnace. If you do that, you turn in the rebate application, you get the money. Or on a commercial side of the equation, it may say put in a chiller that has an efficiency of a certain kW per ton or better, and you'll get this much rebate for every ton of cooling that you save. Those are the prescriptive ones. Most of the utilities have a custom program as well, which is typically only available for commercial buildings or industrial facilities, and that basically allows you to come up with creative ways to save energy that are not listed in the prescriptive methods, but still get some funding to help your project happen. Typical incentives, like we said, are equipment change-outs like furnaces and chillers. They may be adding control systems to a building. They may be changing out your commercial lighting. They may be doing tune-ups on your boiler or things like that. Most of the utilities have some direct install programs, mainly for multifamily buildings. because of the unique nature of multifamily buildings where it's kind of like a commercial building, but it's used for residential folks, a lot of them have come up with this direct install plan where there's basically some pre-approved subcontractors that the utility works with that go into these buildings and do some very basic upgrades that help take the load off of the building as a whole. So on the hot water side, it often involves changing out shower heads to low flow shower heads, adding aerators. On the lighting side, it often is related to changing out light bulbs, but typically doesn't include anything more complex than that, although those folks may make recommendations for doing upgrades to more complex equipment. Many of the utilities now have newer programs out that include energy audits. Basically, in these cases, the utility comes out and does a fairly low-cost audit, typically between $50 and $100, depending on the utility. Does a low-cost audit, helps identify all the low-hanging fruit that the homeowner can fix, and then typically, if people do that audit, they may be eligible for additional rebates beyond the typical furnace and boiler rebates for things like air sealing, duct sealing, and insulation. We'll talk a little bit about each one of these programs. And then some of the utilities also have a new program for on-bill financing, and we'll also talk about that today as well. All right, so as a reminder, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and I will try to address them as they come up. Right now, we're doing the residential portion of these rebates. For those folks that are on the commercial side of the equation, please stay on the line. And on the second half of this presentation, we're going to talk about that specifically. So for NICOR, we'll start with that since they have the most programs out there right now, and then we'll build on the other utilities as we go. This list on the screen is the residential rebates that are currently available to NICOR gas customers. Whether a customer is treated as residential or commercial for all these utility programs depends on how their meter is classified. So that, like I said, the multifamily buildings, condos and apartment buildings can kind of be a little iffy depending on how they've been classified and how they're operated. But for single family homes, it's quite clear it falls under this scope here. So for the furnaces, there are two rebates available from NICOR. There's a 92% furnace and a 95% furnace. The 92% furnace, as you can see, is a $200 rebate. A 95% furnace is a $250 rebate. On the boiler side, there's also two tiers, 90% and 95%, that corresponds to $350 and $450 rebates. Additionally, for the next month or so, the first quarter of this year, there's an additional $100 bonus rebate on boilers. So really these boiler amounts are $450 for a 90%er and $550 for a 95% boiler. And that's for a limited time only, and then they will reduce back down to the $350 and $450 rates. All these utility programs for rebates expire May 31st for the state of Illinois rebates. But then starting June 1st, new programs launch. Basically, these programs are 10-year programs that are mandated by the state. The utilities have all filed their first 3-year plan. So last year they were kind of on pilot years. This year is the first full year, and the plan that they have written and submitted to the state and has been approved is for 3 years. So it's not like the program truly ends on May 31st. It's just that the program with these exact dollar amounts and so forth ends then. And then June 1st, a new program starts, and then the dollar amounts may go up or down. Additional rebates may be added on to the program. Other ones may be taken off, things like that. So just keep that in mind. Every June 1st, for all of our utilities, a new program starts, and that's true for NICOR, Peoples, North Shore, ComEd, and Ameren. And other states do a similar thing. They usually have a 1-year type program, and then it keeps renewing after that. I get a lot of questions from people about, well, what if the money runs out? The money is not going to run out. There's more than enough money in the program currently to fund all of the rebates that they have on backlog, as well as all the ones they anticipate. And even if the money did roll out, it's very probable they would take next year's money and use it to supplement back to this year. So there's pretty much zero chance of the money running out. So that should not be something that deters you from offering these rebates to a consumer. And then lastly on here are storage water heaters. Storage water heaters are basically tank water heaters like most of you are familiar with in your own homes, big 40-gallon tank. If you put in a water heater that has an energy factor of 0.67, you are eligible for a $200 rebate. And coincidentally, the price on that level of water heater has gone down in the past year and a half or so, so that they're much more cost effective on their own. So with that $200 rebate, you typically end up with about a 1-year payback for a consumer, which is a pretty good deal. At the present time, only storage tank water heaters are eligible for a rebate at Nicor. Instantaneous water heaters and indirect water heaters are not currently eligible, although there is discussion that we may start doing that in June. But as of right now, only tank water heaters. There is a fairly new rebate that came out for Nicor. It's a joint program between Nicor and ComEd. And you can see down on the bottom there the website. Each one of these pages, I have the website link on the bottom so you can see how to get to those. But the new program is called Complete System Replacement, or CSR, we call it. And basically what that does is it allows you to add a high efficiency or even a medium efficiency air conditioner to your furnace changeout with Nicor, and they'll give you an additional rebate on top of the money for just the furnace. And ComEd is supplementing that rebate on the back end since it's electric usage. So, for example, if you put in a 95% furnace with a 14.5 SEER air conditioner and the contractor sells that system at the exact same time to the homeowner, instead of getting a $250 rebate for the furnace, they actually get a $650 rebate. They fill out one application and submit it to Nicor, and then they actually end up getting 2 checks. They get a $250 check from Nicor, and they get a $400 check for ComEd. So it will come as 2 checks since it's coming from 2 separate funds. However, it's only one application that the contractor has to fill out with the consumer. Right now, it's only available for furnaces, so a 92 or 95% furnace will qualify, and you have to put in a 14.5 SEER air conditioner. It is important to note that the 14.5 SEER is not the SEER number that's listed on the marketing literature for the air conditioner. It has to do with the AHRI match. So what that means is that the air conditioner outside, the condensing unit, and the evaporator coil inside the home, and the furnace, all 3 of those components work together, and they all have a combined rating, a combination rating, and that combination rating has to hit the 14.5 SEER mark. So that's really what counts. These rebates are available retroactively to January 1st. They expire on May 31st like the rest of the program does. The application forms went live on the website January 21st or 22nd, but like I said, they are retroactive to January 1st. You can only apply for the air conditioner rebate and get this money from ComEd if you are also doing a furnace change out at the exact same time. You have to do everything at once. ComEd does not currently have a rebate program available for just doing air conditioners by themselves. It has to be sold at the exact same time as the furnace. Additionally, there are no rebates available for heat pump systems at all. The current Illinois state law does not allow fuel switching under these rebate programs, so switching from gas to heat pump is not permitted. So right now, just a furnace combined with an air conditioner is what would qualify. There is another joint program with Nicor and ComEd that's coming out for residential new construction. That program is not yet fully launched. At least I don't believe that it has launched, at least not as of 2 weeks ago. But you will see information about that shortly. I realize new construction is not the big thing that it used to be, but you know, for the folks that are building it, if they build to the Energy Star guidelines, there may be some rebates available for them on that end of the equation. So pay attention for mailings and the websites for some more information on that when it becomes available. I do have a question that was typed in from William. The question was, are rebates issued to the consumer or the installer? And the answer to that is it could be either one depending on what you've chosen to do. So normally the rebates are issued to the homeowner except for 2 cases, and this is true for commercial as well. So the rebates would be issued to the building owner or the homeowner. The 2 exceptions to that would be is if the building owner or homeowner has signed over their rebate to the contractor, then the utility will mail the check to that contractor. The other scenario that would be an exception to that would be is if the contractor, especially residentially, has signed up to offer an instant discount rebate. So for example, Nicor has a program called Contractor Circle. If the contractor registers to be a part of that program, which has no cost to them, they just have to fill out some paperwork, they can then offer an instant rebate to the consumer, which means basically they take the $250 furnace rebate off of their invoice to the consumer, so the consumer never pays it, but then Nicor pays the contractor on the back end. So it could be done that way. All right, so the next topic here, which is also another joint program with Nicor and ComEd, is the Home Energy Savings Program. This is one of those energy auditing programs I had mentioned earlier. In this case, a representative of the utilities comes out and does a $99 energy assessment of the home. There's actually a subcontractor called CSG, Conservation Services Group, that does this program for NICOR and ComEd. They do this home assessment, which is between a $400 and $500 value to the consumer, but they do it for 99 bucks. In addition to getting a report that details the home's energy use and potential places where people can save energy, they also do some very low labor intensive installations, like change out some light bulbs to compact fluorescent light bulbs, maybe install some aerators on sinks or low flow shower heads and things like that. So they will do some of that stuff, and then for like 22 bucks, I believe it is, they will also install a programmable thermostat if the homeowner wants to take that option. And then when the homeowner looks at this report, there'll be many items on there that can help them save energy, like adding insulation, air sealing their home, changing out their boiler, that kind of stuff. Obviously, furnaces and boilers are already eligible for rebates on another program, but some of those things like insulation and air sealing would be available to someone who's done this energy audit. So if as a consumer you've done this energy audit and then you want to take the next step, which is air seal your home and then insulate your home, or air seal your ductwork and insulate your ductwork, you can get some additional rebates, and I believe it's 50% of the cost of those, up to $1,250 maximum. In order to do that work, you do have to use one of the CSG subcontractors, and I believe there are 11 of them that are servicing the NICOR and ComEd area. So there's 11 specific contractors that the energy auditor will pair you up with to do that sealing and insulation work, should you choose to do that. Let me check now and see if we have any other questions that are typed in. Let's see. For any of the code changes, for example, condensing furnaces, are there any exceptions? For example, do you have to switch existing users that are on a condensing stack? So basically, I think what that question is getting at is on this minimum furnace efficiency, which is this one screen back here. What about multifamily buildings? What do I do in condos and apartments and basically mid and high-rise buildings where these appliances are sharing a common venting stack? And currently, there is no exception to that. If you are in a multifamily building and you are the first unlucky sap to have to buy a new furnace after this law change, you will have to find a way to vent your furnace to the outdoors without using your current venting system. So say you had a 12-flat apartment building where you got 12 apartments all with their own furnaces feeding into a common chimney. Well, once you go to a condensing appliance, that condensing appliance can no longer vent through that chimney with the other 11 people's regular furnaces. That air temperature is too hot for the condensing appliance to be able to handle that. And by code, you're going to have to vent that somewhere else. In some buildings, like a single-family home, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, you can find a way to vent it. But in a multifamily building that's 4 or 5 stories or even more, it's going to be a nightmare. So I would suggest to those folks that they buy a new 80% furnace next year while they still can, and then their neighbor can be the first guy to have to buy a 90 and they can figure out how to vent it. But there are no exceptions to that currently. It is a 500-page document, so I won't say that I read every single page of it, but I've read most of it, and there's nothing in there that would indicate there's any exceptions to that, and none of the trade groups have mentioned anything like that. Every trade group has written a letter to the DOE complaining about it, and the DOE has chosen to adopt it anyway. So I think multifamily people are going to be in a little bit of trouble with this furnace change, and you may see some more heat pumps because of that. All right, so let's jump back up here. I did get some requests from people on the question box to put the links to some of those documents in the chat box, and I will do that here towards the end. And then you won't have to try to figure out what those long links were. So I will do that for you guys. So that's kind of all the rebates for the NICOR side of the equation. So let's talk a little bit about Peoples Gas. So Peoples Gas has rebates available just like NICOR does, and the categories and the efficiency targets are very similar. So for example, for furnaces, once again, there are 2 tiers, a 92% furnace or 95% furnace, and those correspond to rebate dollar amounts of $350 and $400. So the efficiency tiers are the same. The dollar amounts are actually more than the NICOR one. On the boiler side of the equation, it's also fairly similar. You can put a 90 or 95% boiler in, and get a $500 or $600 rebate. And there also are some additional rebates available for larger boilers, which are not very common in residences, but they are there on occasion. And there's also some rebates available to add reset controls to an existing boiler. Although it's only $100, and adding reset controls probably on a cast iron boiler probably costs you more like $1,200 by the time you add the valve and everything in. So it is a fairly long payback. But furnaces and boilers are actually a pretty good deal. Just like Nicor, Peoples Gas has also partnered with ComEd to offer a complete system replacement, a CSR rebate, where basically you get the furnace rebate from the gas company and you get the air conditioning rebate from ComEd. Everything is the same in that regard in terms of a 14.5 SEER air conditioner matched system with the indoor and outdoor systems working together to get that rating. And you get an extra $400 on top of the regular rebate. So for a Peoples Gas customer, putting a 95% furnace in with a 14.5 SEER matched air conditioner, it's actually an $800 rebate. And all the same things apply. It's retroactive to January 1st. It expires May 31st, although it'll probably continue on in June at a lower dollar amount, probably around $200, but don't quote me on that. It's a little bit higher now because ComEd has used some marketing funds to supplement it to help generate awareness about it. But right now it is $400, so it is a pretty good deal. No heat pumps, once again, only air conditioners, and it's got to be a matched rating combination. North Shore Gas, which is owned by the same parent company as Peoples Gas. They're both part of Integris. They have a very similar program as well. They have the similar types of options that Peoples has, but the dollar amounts are closer to what Nicor has. So, for example, for 92 and 95% residential furnaces, the rebate dollar amounts are $200 and $250. For boilers, it's 90 and 95%, corresponding to $350 and $450 rebates. And they also have rebates for larger boilers as well as reset controls. And once again, heat pumps and dual fuel systems are not eligible. And then this is the combination system. Just like the other two gas companies, North Shore is also partnered with ComEd to offer combination systems where you change out your air conditioner at the same time as the furnace and you get the additional rebate. So for example, a 95% furnace matched with a 14.5 SEER air conditioner or better will get you a $650 rebate instead of a $250. And once again, you'll fill out one application with the gas company, but you'll get two checks in the mail, one from the gas company and one from the electric company. There are some other programs out there that are available as well. Most of the folks in this webinar are HVAC folks, so that's what you're most interested in, but there are a few other folks on here that are not HVAC, so I'll mention some of these other items anyway. Like we said, there are multifamily programs that are available. They're actually available through all three gas utilities in combination with ComEd. So Peoples, North Shore, and Nicor. And it's basically for direct installation of low flow shower heads, and aerators and light bulbs and things like that. ComEd has an Energy Star lighting program that's available through retailers such as home repair stores like Home Depot, Menards, and those folks, where you can get low-cost CFL bulbs directly from a retailer. There are refrigerator and freezer recycling options where they'll basically pay you to come pick up your old appliance because they don't want you putting it in your garage and turning it into a beer cooler, basically. So they'll pay you to take that off the grid and throw it away with them. Just say recycle it, not throw it away. And there's also rebates for clothes washers as well, directly through some specific retailers. The newest type of incentive program that some of the utilities are using now is called an on-bill financing program. This is a very exciting option because it helps the homeowners do some of this energy efficiency stuff without having to come up with the cash, which is always a difficult thing. This is not for people that have poor credit. This is for people that have fairly decent credit. You don't have to be phenomenal. For example, I heard that it's approximately a 680 credit score that's required or better. So that's pretty achievable for many homeowners that have decent history of paying. Right now, that program is fully launched with Peoples and North Shore Gas. It is available for qualifying furnaces that are 92% AFUE or greater. There's currently no program available for boilers. It's just currently only for furnace users. And basically what the homeowner gets is a loan that's financed to them on their utility bill. So they only have one bill that comes in the mail, and they pay both their gas bill and their loan on the same bill with one check. And you can finance up to $20,000. You get a choice of 3, 5, or 10-year loan at 4.99% interest rate with no money down, and there's no cost for the contractors either. So basically the utility program is buying down the loan from the loan company. These loans are administered on a statewide basis by a loan company called AFC First, and the utility is buying down that loan down to basically a 5% interest rate to make it attractive to the homeowner. So that's kind of how that works. ComEd is also currently on this program, although at the moment it's only for refrigerators and only at very specific Sears stores. However, it's very probable that starting in April, you'll be able to finance your air conditioner on this program as well, if you buy that air conditioner and use that complete system rebate form with Peoples and North Shore Gas. So, or I guess Nicor even. But you have to do the complete system. You got to do the furnace and the air conditioner change out. And if you do that, then you'll be able to finance both your air conditioner and your furnace on your utility bills. The furnace will go onto the gas bill. The air conditioner will go onto your electric bill. But you will be able to do both, probably starting in April, perhaps sooner, but probably April. Nicor is a little bit behind in this regard. They don't have their program quite ready to launch. They have some legal issues that they're working out, but we hope to have the Nicor folks on board soon with that. Even still, if Nicor's not on board when ComEd launches their program, you still be able to finance the air conditioner half of your installation through ComEd, and you have to pay your contractor directly for the gas half on the furnace. But it'd be better once it's the whole system, obviously. I just got a note come in on the chat box from Bill Burns over at ComEd mentioning that you could possibly qualify for these rebates with a FICO score as low as 640. So there's lots of factors that go into whether someone qualifies or not in terms of their payment history, but 640 looks like it might be the absolute minimum to qualify for a ComEd air conditioner on-bill financing. There are other ways to get some of this stuff financed. Like I said, that on-bill financing is just for furnaces right now, but if you have a boiler or other type of system that you want to try to finance that's high efficiency, there is a website set up to help you facilitate that. It's called energyimpactillinois.org, and if you go on there, basically what you'll find is some basically pre-approved lenders, if you will, that already have programs in place to help you finance some of these projects. And there is some subsidies on the back end to kind of make it attractive. Some of the interest rates can be down to 8%. Once again, it does not cost anything to the contractors. You can get loans for larger dollar amounts. So there are quite a few things that work out in regards to that. There's another website I'll just draw your attention to, and then we'll keep on moving so we can do the commercial stuff. It's called the energybills.org. And it's a website you can use by putting in the consumer zip code and finding out different information about programs that are available for them in their area based on the utilities that they have. There's also a website called Home EQ that would help you evaluate an individual house and see how efficient it might be. I will say that this is more of a marketing tool for homeowners to play with and not so much of an engineering tool for a contractor to use. This is just to get people interested and engaged in improving their house by giving them some kind of benchmark to look at in a 5-minute time frame. For you folks over on the Indiana side of the line here, there are some residential rebates available from NIPSCO as well. Once again, furnaces have 2 tiers, 92 and 95% for $200 and $250. Boilers qualify at 90% for $500. If you add an indirect storage tank to a boiler system, that way your boiler can do both your domestic water and your space heating, you get an extra $250 for a total of $750 rebate on the boiler and tank combo. They do have storage water heaters. Once again, a 0.67 efficiency water heater gets you a $150 rebate, and they also have a tankless water heater option for $150 as well, and then $20 for a programmable thermostat. And then for the folks just over the border in Michigan there with all the vacation homes, there are rebates for you folks as well. 92% furnace gets you a $200 rebate. 0.62 water heater gets you $35, which is pretty small. And then boilers, for high efficiency boiler, it's a $200 rebate, $20 for a thermostat. And then there's also programs up in Wisconsin for you guys that have consumers up there, vacation homes and all that kind of stuff as well. Typical same stuff, furnace and boiler rebates. They also have an air conditioning rebate on the exact same program. They don't split the gas and electric rebates up in Wisconsin. It's all run by one program called Focus on Energy. The website is focusonenergy.com, and they've even added geothermal and mini splits to those rebate programs. So if you're up in Wisconsin, take a look at that. All right, so on the commercial side of the equation, we'll talk about that a little bit now. If you have more residential questions, type them in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I will post the links to the new furnace and boiler laws and everything on the chat box here. On the commercial side, just like residential, our energy codes are ratcheting up. We've had a commercial energy code in Illinois since 2006. It took us a couple years to get that law passed because there was, believe it or not, a lot of resistance to it. Many of us had to call up legislators and beg them to pass it, and we finally did. We updated it in 2009 when we did the residential code, and we also put it at that time on a continuing update cycle as well. So every 3 years, that code basically automatically updates without the lawmakers having to do anything really. So starting in June, just like the residential, starting in June, we moved to the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code as a state minimum law, which is approximately 25% more stringent than the first law we adopted in 2006. So just in a short time frame here, 6 years, we ratchet up the minimum building you can build by 25%, which is quite substantial. Commercially, there are some federal tax deductions available. There are no tax credits commercially, but there are tax deductions. They are good for another 2 years or so. They expire December 2013. You can get up to $1.80 per square foot tax deduction. It's actually 60 cents per square foot for one of 3 different types of building systems. So improving the building envelope, which is ceiling and insulation and that kind of stuff, improving your lighting, and then improving your HVAC. Each one of them is worth 60 cents per square foot up to $1.80. You have to be 50% more efficient than ASHRAE Standard 90.1 2001 version. The current ASHRAE Standard 2012 is approximately 40% more stringent than that 2001 version. So basically, if you get your building up to the current code, you're pretty much almost all the way there, and you only got to get a little bit further to get this money. This doesn't really work for somebody changing out a rooftop or a boiler or something like that. It really is more for a full renovation project because you do have to do quite a bit of stuff to save that much energy, and you typically have to do energy modeling using like eQuest or HAP or something like that to model this building to prove that you got the energy savings, or at least that you're designing it for the energy savings. So it's not really for everybody, but for major renovations, this is available out there. If you are not for profit type group, like a church or a government building or something like that, there are ways to assign your tax deduction to the designer of your system, assuming they actually have a tax liability to offset it as well. So you can reassign it to your architect or your contractor or your engineer or something like that. And then obviously you want to work with your tax professional to figure out the details of that, but that can be done. There's also a federal tax credit that's available. So if you recall, a tax deduction takes it off of your total income. A tax credit takes it off your tax bill at the end of the day. So this is direct money. If you put a ground source geothermal heat pump system in, you can get a 10% tax credit. If you do solar systems, you can get a 30% tax credit. There's also some accelerated depreciation options that help pay these systems off faster as well. So you get a tax credit, plus you can accelerate the depreciation. If you are going to do a solar system, either solar thermal or solar water, solar thermal water heating or solar photovoltaics or wind for that matter, there are additional rebates available from the state. You can get up to 30% additional rebate on top of the federal money for residential and commercial buildings. If you're a not-for-profit or public institution, you can get 50%, up to a maximum of $50,000. The only catch with this is that the pool of money is fairly small, so the money goes fairly quickly. So you pretty much have to have already made the decision to buy this solar stuff on its own merits, using just the federal money versus waiting for the state money. They'll release that state money, and then 2-3 weeks later, the money's all gone. So it's a very niche type thing, whether you can get this particular credit or not. But the federal money is available for everybody with no problems. So on the utility side of the equation, these are some of the rebates that are available. I'm going to take a quick drink break here and also see if we have any new questions. Got tons of utility folks sending notes in saying that they're available to take anybody's questions if need be. So if there's a question someone asks that I cannot answer, I can hook you up with the correct utility folks to help get that answered. So on the commercial side, on the screen right now, you're seeing the rebates that Nicor Gas offers. Most of the commercial programs have many more offerings in them than the residential programs do. That's because commercial buildings have many more different types of systems installed in them. But on the simple end, you've got gas furnaces that are basically identical to the residential rebates, 92 or 95% for $200 or $250. Then you have a whole slew of condensing boilers that are available to you, as well as non-condensing boilers. The condensing boilers have larger rebate dollar amounts, as you might expect, because they save significantly more energy. And then for Nicor, those rebates are tiered based on the size of the boiler. The bigger the boiler, the bigger the rebate. So if you put, for example, put in a 1 million BTU condensing boiler, you'll get a $5,000 rebate. If you put in two 500,000 BTU boilers, you would also get a $5,000 rebate, 2,500 times 2, basically. If you put in a very large boiler, say 1.8 million BTUs, you get a $7,500 rebate. They also have rebates for things like infrared heating. You can get a $700 rebate for infrared heaters. There are rebates for water heating. There's all kinds of different stuff on here. As you can see, these are all the prescriptive programs. One of the very popular ones is the boiler tune-up program, where you can get a $350 rebate for tuning up your boiler. The contractor has to go through a checklist of various things to check to make sure it's operating correctly and to clean the heat exchangers. And then they have to do a combustion analysis test, which basically proves out its efficiency. And then they print off that analysis and turn it in with their report, and it's up to a $350 rebate. For very small boilers, $350 is an awesome rebate and pretty much pays for the whole damn tune-up. For larger boilers, it is a little bit harder. If you got a 2 million BTU boiler, this is just a drop in the bucket in terms of the labor costs to tune it up. However, we are looking at having multiple tiers in the future to kind of make it more attractive for those folks. But you should still go ahead and do it because it's a good practice to have. It does make your boiler more efficient. And $350 is nice money to take. There is a rebate of $50 for programmable thermostats that are installed on space heating equipment. Smaller rooftops or furnaces and things like that, you can add a programmable stat and get that rebate. Steam traps are a very popular rebate. You can repair or replace them for $50 per trap, and every building's got tons of traps, so that starts adding up pretty quickly. And you can also add outside air reset controls to an existing boiler plant for a $250 rebate. There's a few other things on the screen here as well, as you can see. And then here's a few more of the rebates that are available on the the Nicor side of the equation for adding insulation. There's a larger steam trap option for industrial systems versus, space heating had the $50 per trap. Industrial systems are even more. And then there are rebates for steam boilers as well. The dollar amounts are not as high because steam boilers are not as efficient as hot water boilers. However, if you take out an old 60%er and put an 80%er in, it's still good therm savings, so there is still somewhat of a rebate associated with it. Peoples and North Shore Gas, commercially speaking, their program is combined into one. Residentially, they have separate programs because there's different dollar amounts. Commercially, it's identical, and they're both owned by the same parent company, so this is treated the same. There's a $60 rebate for repairing and replacing steam traps. For boilers, they do it a little bit differently, but it still is kind of based on the size of the boiler. But instead of having various tiers like Nicor, they basically have a certain rebate per MBH. So if you put in a million BTU boiler, you'd multiply the million BTUs times $6.67, and that would tell you what your rebate is going to be. They also have rebates for condensing unit heaters, just like Nicor had. Boiler tune-ups. Their boiler tune-up program is tiered based on the size of the boiler, and the way they do that is they give you a rebate of 40 cents for every 1,000 BTUs. MBH is 1,000 BTUs. So if you did a million BTU boiler, you would take basically 1,000 times the 40 cents, and that would calculate out your rebate. And you could also do outside air reset controls. And that's also based on the size of the boiler. There are other options on the commercial program as well. You can put a residential furnace in a commercial building and get rebates similar to the residential program, which is $400 for 95%, $225 for a 92%, $40 for a programmable thermostat, and then $100 for a 0.67 water heater, which is fairly easy to do. ComEd has tons of prescriptive rebates that we're not going to have time to go through every single one individually, but you can see the website there, comed.com/biz incentives will give you all the various rebates that they have. That first section up there, unitary, is basically for rooftop units, packaged rooftop units, as well as split systems. So based on the size of the equipment, we'll determine what efficiency you have to hit and then the rebate amount that you get. So if you put in a 10-ton rooftop, you'd be there on that that second line right there, which means you have to put in a unit that's at least 12 EER, which will give you $30 per ton. So a 10-ton rooftop would get you a $300 rebate, the way it is today. I believe rooftops are actually going to phase off of this program, so this is going to change, and it won't be like this very soon. But right now, this is how it's set up. Those little stars on there basically tell you that if you have a heat pump unit, the efficiency is a little bit different, and it basically goes up like 0.2 ER, I believe it is. Chillers is definitely where the action would be in terms of this rebate program. This is where you'd be able to get fairly large dollar amounts for making really efficient improvements. And the way the chillers works is you got to pick whether you have an air-cooled or a water-cooled chiller. So if you pick an air-cooled chiller, which is the fairly simplest form of chiller, you look and see, do I have above 150 tons or below? And then I have a little bit different bogey to hit, either 0.85 or 0.6 kW per ton, IPLV. IPLV is the chiller definition for what would be a part load scenario. So for this rebate program, they do not look at the full load operating efficiency of the chiller. The full operating efficiency is fairly irrelevant because you're only going to be at that point for less than 1% of the year. Normally you're going to be at some kind of part load operating scenario, either because there's less people in the building or it's because it's cooler outside or whatever. So you look at the part load value, which is defined by AHRI, and then basically, let's say I have an air-cooled chiller, let's say it's 100 tons, so I got to be at least 0.86 kW per ton. If I hit that amount, I get $30 per ton. So for 100 tons, I would get a $3,000 rebate. However, if I was a little bit better, like instead of 0.86, if I was 0.8, then I would be, 0.06 better, and I would get to take a $3.50 bonus for every 0.01 kW per ton better than I am, on top of the $30. So you can get a little bit bigger rebate that way. I did have a question that just came in asking if there are any commercial swimming pool rebates, for example, with pool heaters or high-efficiency pool heating equipment. I'm not exactly sure. I think the answer is no. I know there are incentives for solar thermal water heating for pool systems, but I do not believe that the gas companies currently have any rebates for swimming pools. Although I can look into that and check on that and see if there is anything, or if any of the utility folks are online, if they want to send a note in saying if there is or isn't, I can use that as the answer. But I think the answer is no off the top of my head. Looks like one of the utility guys did put a note in saying that there used to be pool rebates for Peoples and North Shore, but those programs were discontinued. So there's your answer for Peoples and North Shore. And I don't remember seeing anything on NICOR either, so probably the answer is no. If you have a water-cooled chiller on the ComEd program, then you have to figure out what I'm sorry, I'm going to pause one more time here. In regards to that pool water heating example for Peoples and North Shore, you can actually do it on a custom incentive is what they're telling me over here right now. So it's not a prescriptive list of what you can do, but if you do want to do a pool water heating system for a fairly decent sized pool, you can submit it as a custom application for a commercial building. If you got a residential pool in your backyard, obviously the custom incentive program is not available to you. But if you are a school or a park district or somewhere like that with a large pool, then you can apply for it under the custom program and do it that way. So switching back over to ComEd on the electric side, if you have a water-cooled chiller, you look and see whether you have a centrifugal, a scroll, or a reciprocating compressor. If you have a screw machine, that goes under the scroll/rotary compressor scenario. So you look and see, well, what type of compressor do I have? What size unit do I have? And then what's my kW per ton target? So it's a little bit different for each one depending on the class of the machine. And that's because all those different classes of machine have different code baselines. So therefore the rebates differ for each one of those types. But basically you get $20 for each ton of each ton of the size of the machine. And if you do better than the kW per ton target, then you get the same extra $3.50 bonus for every 0.01 kW per ton better that you do. There's also rebates on this program for other smaller pieces of equipment like P-Tax that are in hotels or even room air conditioners. One of the biggest rebates for the ComEd program, other than lighting is a huge part of the program. It's like 80% of the rebates. But other than lighting, the next biggest one would probably be the variable frequency drives. You can put a variable frequency drive on a fan or a pump and get a $60 per horsepower rebate, which almost pays for the cost of a drive in many of these scenarios. Obviously, you still got to pay to get it installed. But it is a really good rebate. It's a very attractive dollar amount. If you put a VFD on a chiller, the dollar amount is actually lower, $25 per horsepower, because the payback is longer in those scenarios, but it's pretty fast on a pump or a fan. Typical paybacks are under 18 months when I do a VFD project, so it is a pretty good deal. I got some questions coming in about Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and I'm going to address those in a couple minutes when we get to that section here real quick. So moving along here would be DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So the way all these utility programs are currently set up is that, like I said, everybody's bill, they're paying into this fund, and then those funds get distributed by whoever makes these improvements. However, what these utilities also have to do by state law is take a certain amount of the money they collect, approximately 25% of that money, and turn it over to the state's DCEO department. And then what they do with that money is they run their own programs for rebates for making improvements that are different than the utility programs. And these programs are typically only available to government buildings. So if you got a school, or if you got a village hall or something like that, those particular types of buildings that are publicly owned buildings do not apply to ComEd or the gas companies for their rebate. They apply to DCEO. It's a way for the state to set aside a certain amount of money for those types of buildings to make sure that that money is available to them. And in some cases, the dollar amounts are actually a little bit better than they might be on the regular utility program, because they might have other funding sources as well. So this gives you a snapshot of that. It works exactly the same way as the other utility programs work. This is the prescriptive situation. So if you do X, you get Y. So for example, once again, if you put a 10-ton rooftop in, you'd be on that very second line there. You'd have to hit 12 EER, but you get $100 per ton instead of $30 per ton like you get from the utility company. So you get 3 times as much money back, so it makes the payback a lot better in those scenarios. Chillers are a little bit closer compared to ComEd. Basically, you get 2 tiers, either paying you $33 or $66 per ton, whereas ComEd, we were at $20 per ton plus the bonus rebate. So depending on how efficient the machine is, it kind of balances out pretty close. So these programs are available for government-owned buildings. And then for compressors, for chillers, these would be the target amounts. Once again, you have to know what kind of compressor you have, what the size tonnage of the machine is, and then you'll figure out what your kW per ton target is. Just like with the utility program, it's based on part load, not on full load efficiency. VFDs, similar type to the ComEd program, although the incentive is $82 per horsepower, and that really does pay for the drive itself, and then you only have to pay for installation labor. That's a very, very good deal for the VFD option. Also, on that program, they have ground source heat pumps. Typically, you won't find that on the utility programs because it typically falls under the fuel swapping. We're swapping electric energy for gas. However, with the state program, it is allowed to do geothermal heat pump systems, and these are the rebate amounts on the bottom of the screen that you can see for that. They also have rebates for gas appliances. So for boilers, down at the very bottom there, basically if you get a 90% efficient boiler, you can get between $3 and $3.50 for every 1,000 BTUs. There's rebates for furnaces, which are similar tiers as we saw before. 92% is the bare minimum. They also have a 94 and 96% tier, each one paying you a different dollar amount for every 1,000 BTUs of the size of the furnace. And all the furnaces are rated on input BTUs. There are rebates for gas water heaters, both tank and tankless, and a little bit higher rebates for condensing water heaters over tank water heaters. So if you have a regular tank water heater, it's $300 per water heater. Put a 0.65 energy factor unit in, which ends up being less than a 1-year payback. If you put in a condensing water heater with an energy factor of 0.80, you get a double rebate of $600. So that's a pretty good deal. There's There's a boiler tune-up program for $300 per boiler, which also doubles to $600 if you have a modulating boiler, which most condensing boilers are also modulating. There's a steam trap program like we saw before as well, and they also have a program to insulate pipe in the building. All these utilities, as well as the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, have custom incentive programs like we had mentioned earlier. So the prescriptive programs are basically you do X and then you get Y dollars back. The custom program is for situations where you can't use the prescriptive. So you don't get to go on the custom program just because you didn't want to do the prescriptive one. You go on the custom program because there is no prescriptive one. For example, if you wanted to put an energy recovery ventilator in a building and save both gas and electric energy by doing that, by recovering energy from your exhaust air and transferring it to your ventilation air, you can do that, and that'll save a boatload of gas and a little bit of electric as well. You can do that, but there's no prescriptive program for it, so you would do it under custom. Because an ERV has more than a 5-year life, it's more like a 20-year life, you would fall under that second column under ComEd there, where you get 8 cents for each kilowatt hour saved during the first year. You would also be able to go on the gas side of the equation, since the ERV saves you both gas and electric, and go to your gas company and get anywhere from 75 cents to $1 for each therm saved during the winter heating season. And then if it happens to be a public entity, your rebates through DCEO would be 12 cents per kilowatt hour and $1.25 for each therm saved. And that's not just ERVs. That could be pretty much anything you can come up with that can save energy and is verifiable and not already existing on a prescriptive program. I will also point out that on the ComEd program, if you have things that have a shorter lifespan, or if they are related to building automation system programming changes, then the rebate amount is actually a little bit less. It's 3 cents instead of 8 cents a kilowatt hour. But for equipment installations, it's 8 cents. On the Indiana side of the border, there are tons of commercial programs as well. This just gives you kind of a sampling of that. They do have a custom program, just like the other utilities in Illinois have. It's, I believe, 9 cents per kilowatt hour of savings. And you can also do it on lighting systems for a little bit less, for 6 cents per kilowatt hour. I don't know if that program has been renewed or not on the lighting side of the equation. But they have all very similar programs, and you can check out that website, nipsco.com/saveenergy, and you can see what they have for HVAC and things like that. The folks up in Michigan, right on there over the border, they also have very similar programs to like you've seen here. So there are rebates for boilers. Oops, excuse me. What happened there? Rebates for boilers, high-efficiency furnaces, infrared unit heaters get you $5 for every 1,000 BTUs of the size of the infrared heater, $50 for a programmable thermostat, and so on down the line. The website for all the Michigan rebates is efficiencyunited.com. And there's a few more items on there for gas water heating. State of Wisconsin has tons and tons of rebates. We're not going to have time to go through all those, obviously. The website is focusonenergy.com, and if you do /incentives, that should take you to the commercial incentives. So there are rebates. They have 2 tiers typically, one for retroactive or retrofit installations and one for new construction projects. And you basically go through and do the same kind of prescriptive list. If I put a boiler in, how much do I get? If I put a qualifying furnace in, how much do I get? Unit heaters, infrared heaters, PTAC units for hotels, things like that. All the same kind of stuff we just saw. One cool thing that they do have is a rebate that's already in the prescriptive section for energy recovery commercially. They give you 75 cents per CFM. The nice thing about the Wisconsin programs is that the electric and gas programs are run jointly, so there's no debate on how much energy is being saved on each side of the equation, so they can easily put this onto their program. There's rebates available for water-cooled and air-cooled chillers. They do have geothermal rebates on here as well. Once again, because they are doing both gas and electric programs, they can do that. VFDs are $40 per horsepower, although I have heard recently that that's changing at the end of this month and might be going away. So if you are doing a VFD project in Wisconsin, you'll want to do it probably in the next 2 days. This is the application for chillers, so you can see what that looks like. Basically, for Wisconsin, you have to meet both the full load and the part load efficiency targets, and then those 2 numbers get used together to calculate what your rebate amount is going to be. It's a little bit complicated, but once you do 1 or 2, it's fairly easy to work through. And then they also have rebates for other applications like water heating, just like the other utilities had. In this pretty robust program, they have tiers for all the different types of water heaters on here, as well as for controls in guest rooms to shut off PTAC units. All right, so with that being said, I do apologize. We went about 6 minutes late, but I could take any questions that you guys have. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. Let me go through while we're doing that, and I'm going to put up on the screen while I read these questions some of these ones that you guys wanted. So I will specifically put this one in the chat box. So you guys will have the full link to the furnace standards, and I'll give you the boiler one as well. So if you guys look in the chat box there, you should be able to click on those links, I believe, directly. And the last one here is the water heaters. And by the way, these three changes for furnaces, boilers, water heaters, and even air conditioners, those don't matter if it's residential or commercial. Those are rated by the type of equipment, regardless of how it's used and what kind of application. So these are manufacturing change minimums that are happening. But the manufacturers will not be allowed to make anything less efficient than these. All right, let me check the question box here. Anybody have any other questions they want to type in? I think I got most of the questions answered as they came up. Email the link, email the links. I think we're good on all the questions. Someone typed in that the first link does not work, which would be this link right here. Let me just try it in my browser real quick before I cut you guys loose. It worked for me just fine. It opens as a PDF, so perhaps you have settings in your Internet Explorer that are not allowing you to open a PDF. Hopefully you guys can see it on my screen. I just went right now to the website. I typed that link in, or cut and paste that link in, and it brought up the 513-page document, which is an exciting read, by the way. If you need help falling asleep at night, I suggest you print this off and read it. So if you have trouble opening it up, you may want to check and see if you have anything in your Internet Explorer browser that is preventing you from opening PDF files. If you still cannot get it and it's an issue, I can email it to you, although it is 500 pages. It may take a little while to go through. But if you have problems, send me an email and I will get it to you one way or the other. And then if you need my email should be up on your screen right now. So you can see that. It's ryan.hoger@tecmungo.com. Let me check the question box one last time to see if I had any other final questions pop up. It looks like we're pretty good there. So that's that. And as I said, next week there's another webinar. Every Monday at noon we have a webinar. So the next one is based on Carrier's building automation system, which is the iView system, and their web interface. And then the week after that, which is March 12th, will be on 23XRV high efficiency chillers, and Mike Smith will do that one. If you don't already get an email a week in advance with the topics and how to register for them, just send me an email note and I will add you to the list, which means every week I will basically send you an email detailing this as well as other training items. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the questions, and I thank you guys for attending, and if you need anything else, just please do let me know. All right, thank you.